Hey, thanks for coming to my talk. I'm Cheerio, also known as Zena Olson, and I'm here to share information on building a purple culture. I created a write-up specifically for this talk on Medium, so if you Google "Let's Get Offensive, Building a Purple Culture" or Medium and Cheerio, you'll see this particular blog post where I'll have all of the resources and articles and links in there for you, so you don't have to take notes if you really don't want to. So a little known fact is, over the past few years, I've been studying purple teaming as part of my doctoral dissertation. So in February of this year, I successfully defended my dissertation and I'm officially a doctor. So in this talk, I'll be weaving in some of the content from my dissertation, but if you want additional context, please, by all means, read the 200 plus page dissertation, or you can always send me a quick message via Twitter and I'll gladly share all the things with you in true millennial fashion, complete with texting acronyms and definitely some meme references. Before we get started though, I do need to share a note from the lawyers that basically I'm here in my individual capacity and the opinions expressed in this presentation are mine and mine alone, and they do not necessarily represent my employers. All right, so now that that's done, so when you think of purple culture, who do you generally believe sets the culture at your organization? Yes, CISO, senior leadership, senior management, all of that do influence and set the culture at your organization, but I also believe that managers and individual contributors can also influence the culture at the organization. So with that pretty much explains the angle where I'll be coming from in this particular talk. So if you're a manager, you can host a workshop with your team members where you basically ask them what purple culture means to them and what purple culture means within your organization. You can get an understanding of what they feel is working well and what you want to continue doing, and maybe get some ideas for stuff that you want to start doing. So to me, I believe, purple culture basically empowers the individuals to defend the organization, and it's kind of where the offense informs the defense, and there's offensive skills across the team. Like, I don't need to read the slide, but generally this gives you some talking points so that if you do decide to host a workshop to get an idea of where you're currently at regarding purple culture, you can have some talking points. So we're going to address four main areas in this particular talk. First, we're going to address security operations and offensive application in that area. Next, we're going to talk about the organization as a whole and see where we can inject some red. We're going to also talk about defense and see how red can learn some defensive skills as well. And finally, thanks to my MBA, we're going to have a brief discussion for managers. Before we get started though, I do know that sometimes red teams are a luxury at organizations. They might not be able to afford them, and let alone have mature red teams that might be even rarer. So for this talk, just suspend that for a second if you do happen to be one of those organizations, and kind of think outside the box. So more and more, I'm kind of seeing defensive professionals also learning offensive skill sets. For instance, I'm a blue teamer, but I also have a couple of red certs, and I really enjoy learning and engaging red professionals. So there could be people like that at your organization, or you can have people that are willing to learn the red skill set. Whatever combination you have at your organization, just keep an open mind as you go through this talk and think outside the box. So number one, we'll address security operations. And just to give you a little bit of context for this so that you know kind of where I'm coming from, I believe that the core security operations department generally includes the SOC, DFIR, CTI, Hunt, detection engineering, red if you have it, and purple if you have it. So keeping that in mind when you approach this, you can adapt it for your organization and however it's organized. And if you do decide to do a workshop, ask your teammates where they see offensive skill sets bringing value to the existing operations of the core security operations department. And this is kind of the intention. This is actually the intention behind this particular section. So I'm going to give you some ideas that you can maybe take back to your organization or use to encourage conversation around. So one of the interesting things that came up in some of the research was purple team professionals sharing how red would sometimes review the logs, including false positives and closed tickets, to be able to spot things that may have been missed. So that is a really great avenue that you can add to your list and see if that's something that you possibly want to include or start at your organization. The other thing that was also really interesting, I had a wonderful conversation with a senior leader during my research process, and in it, he really emphasized the importance of red during incidents and how they could add so much value to what was going on for the incident response process. So I wanted to highlight that and to just share how important that is, especially in the event of 0 days or other things happening. I really believe that red and the offensive skill set can bring a lot of value to the incident response team. So another area that I feel is really important for red is training cyber threat intelligence analysts on procedures and how to extract them, what to look for, really understanding threat actor activity, and then on top of that, also training the cyber threat intelligence team to use your breach attack simulation or BAS solution, whatever that may be, and be able to execute the procedures that they find for the various, threat activity groups or threat actors that they find in order to validate that there is either that there are detections or visibility, or to potentially submit a detection based on the procedural level information related to the threats that are potentially impacting your organization. And another really great area where red can offer a lot of value for cyber threat intelligence beyond just training and validation detections, improving the security posture of the organization, but also giving ideas to CTI to look for alternative procedures when something doesn't seem very forthcoming with the either intelligence that they're provided, so that they can at least gain a little bit of visibility and have a best effort kind of approach to building out their intelligence that they provide to other team members. Another really great area where red skills can offer a lot of value is in detection engineering. So I believe it was, recently Dave Kennedy shared on Twitter how about the recent Microsoft 0 Day with MSDT.exe, or CVE 2022-30190. And he ended up creating a detection for it in 2017 for binary defense. And a little funny aside is that sub tier Casey Smith, he made a really excellent point. And I really believe this is part of purple culture where offense informs defense. So you can really leverage your red team or red skill set, whatever you have, in order to really build out the detections in your organization to stay ahead of the potential threat landscape or threats that could be impacting your organization. Another really great area that you can inject some red into is Hunt, where they can actually have really high fidelity hunts based on known activity that's provided by the red team for whatever technique it is that the hunt team is interested in, so that they can expand that scope from the specific red team activity telemetry within the logs to other areas on the network and potentially find other badness. So security operations as a whole. So once you address the immediate core security operations, various teams, think about the security team as a whole with DFIR and CTI and SOC and Hunt and all of them. What would they be interested in getting better at as far as their red skills, offensive skills, being able to spot malicious activity? And so just having that general conversation, like for instance, I would like to get better at deobfuscating malicious JavaScript, or I would like to get better at analyzing payloads that are not necessarily as common. So Red Team can help with this. They can help with whatever it is that you want, or people with red skills to be able to build the blue teamer skills, so that when something bad happens at your organization, their skills will be quote unquote fresh, and they'll know what to do, if that makes sense. They'll be practiced. Another really great one is a technique review. So you pick a technique, whatever it is, and Red can go really in depth with it to provide that additional context to the blue team or SOC for whatever it is that they'll be looking for within the logs. So now we'll talk about the organization in general outside of the core security operations team. So this could be different for various organizations. Please apply it to however it works for you. So let's say you're taking the workshop approach. Here is where you would ask your teammates where they see offensive skills bringing value outside the immediate security organization. So I provided some ideas for you. You can break it down to application security, exploit dev, vulnerability management, maybe risk management, DevSecOps, or even organization-wide. So for AppSec, you can potentially onboard a bug bounty program, and there's a really great reference. It's on the SANS white papers, and it's called Bug Bounty Programs Enterprise Implementation, and it really goes in depth. It's by Jason Pubal, and it really goes into depth, private versus public, explains what you might come up against onboarding an enterprise bug bounty program. Just be sure that you have the people, processes, and technology in place before you approach that. Definitely, and read that paper. Another one is exploit dev. So Ryan Adamson at SANS Pentest Hackfest in 2021, he gave a really great talk on a seriously righteous hack about how you can perform exploit dev and actually improve the security posture of the organization by doing that. So check out that talk if you're interested in injecting some red into that area. Vulnerability management. Of course, red can be a consult for exploits, and they're really, really helpful in letting you know how easy it is to take advantage of whatever vulnerability is released, and they can even help prioritize some of the open vulnerabilities that you have by pointing out, oh wow, this privilege escalation with this and that can lead to this, so you probably want to patch that sooner rather than later. Another area where Red can provide value is risk management. So in there, Red of course can provide consults, but third-party vendor review, vendor onboarding, maybe mergers and acquisitions, wherever that fits within your organization. And then also consider security chaos engineering. So at the SANS Purple Team Summit, I believe in 2021, Carrie Kistola and Dave Lavezzo, they ended up doing a talk called Order Through Chaos, Data-Driven Hypothesis Creation Using Security Chaos Engineering. If you get a chance, check it out. Also, too, during some of the research, one of the participants, they actually did a CTF for the entire organization. and it really brought various teams together. And from the information that was shared, it was kind of surprising that there are people that have skills that maybe aren't even in the security team that did an amazing job on the CTF. So expanding that out to the organization and using it as a way to build not only the purple culture, but also to build relationships with people within the organization is a great solution for that. So now we're on to the third area, or defense, where red can also get some defensive skills. So once again, if you're doing the workshop, if you do have a red team, you can ask how your team thinks that the defensive skill set or interaction with the defensive teams could potentially benefit the red team. And you can just do some brainstorming around that. So some things to consider or think about is red team could do a SOC sit-in where they get an idea of what the SOC, or maybe even DFIR, what DFIR goes through, or possibly even Hunt, what they go through in detecting red or offensive activity within the environment, attacker activity. They could also do boss of the SOC with the blue team and really get an understanding for more of the tradecraft. And also too, if red sits in with the SOC, they can kind of see some of the pain that some of the other defensive members go through, especially regarding false positives and some of the extra work that red potentially might create for them, so that they can get a better understanding or possibly even have more compassion or empathy for their blue teammates and build that relationship too. The end goal, building that relationship, building that understanding between the various teams so that it's not so adversarial focused of red versus blue. Instead, it's red with blue, right? Or blue with red. So, section 4, we're going to have a brief conversation about managers and provide some ideas for managers. So in this, there's a lot of different things that you can do as a manager. One of the things that I think is important to consider is alternative analysis training. So, like I said, in the medium, there's a resource available, but in it, it teaches about red teaming and red teaming mindset, devil's advocacy, just different alternative analysis training of like viewing content and thinking about things. And I think that can be potentially even organization-wide to help with your critical thinking skills. Another thing is if red isn't in the core security operations function, potentially consider either branching off and creating a separate red team under the core security operations, or just moving it there entirely. The other thing is I would recommend managers to consider having a virtual gathering, since a lot of things are still virtual, for red and blue, where it's more of a relationship building session, since they can't possibly go out to lunch together. Just have them get together, talk without manager oversight. And I think that can do a lot for building the relationship and helping break down some walls. You can also encourage them to get together and just hack together, ask questions, maybe some mentorship or learning opportunities across the team. Whatever it is, this is your team. You can get creative, do TTP Fridays or whatever day you want to do it, 30 minutes, an hour. Just brainstorm detection ideas if it's mainly a blue team, or learn about how you think an attack would show up in your telemetry, and maybe get a lab going with your security stack and actually test it out, or some sort of logging where you can look at the attack and see how it's presenting within the logs, whether or not it's your security stack. So thank you very much for coming to my talk. My name is Zena Olson. Please feel free to Google Cheerio plus medium and the talk title, Let's Get Offensive, Building a Purple Culture, for additional references and resources. Thank you very much and enjoy the rest of RSA.